G'day Rugby League fans, welcome along to the Mad Monday podcast, brought to you by 4 and 20 Pies, the perfect at-home snack for watching the Rugby League. My name is Adam Whānui. Joining me on today's show all the way from beautiful Bay of Plenty, Hurley Farnworth. How are you, Ben?
Really good, Jiggly Chris.
Stop just putting Jiggly on the front of stuff and thinking it's a Pokemon. We had enough of that on the commentary over the weekend. Great commentary, by the way. Thanks to everyone who watched on Sky Sport 9. This weekend's game will be on Sky Sport 9 as well with Di and Ben. Also, we have a Facebook group. If you want to jump on the Mad Monday Munters, just type in Mad Monday. You'll see it. Join up there. Also, if you have a Supercoach team and you haven't yet joined our open group, 287823 is the number to chuck in. You can win a signed Warriors jersey and bragging rights as well. At the moment, the bragging rights are if you are somewhere above Hurley on the table, who is dominating our ACC Supercoach, our Supercoach League, which I'm half stoked about and half deeply embarrassed by, just considering last year you barely, made any changes or anything. So it's good to see. But Ben,
I'm basically I'm the Dolphins of Supercoach.
You really
are.
Second
year. It's the second year and I'm unbeaten.
It's just ridiculous. I don't know whether we're all terrible or you are the Leeson Al-Gaib of Supercoach, not me. But we'll get into that a little later on. For now, though, let's review the Warriors game, who absolutely pants the Rabbitohs over at home, 34 points to 4. And that is an excellent performance by the Warriors, 34 points to 4. 3 wins on the season. The Wars looking shit hot, Ben Hurley.
Look, this is a statement. This is the game. This is where we say this could be our year. And I don't care that I'm saying that, because it is not like, oh, will they, won't they? They bloody will. They've taken down a glamour club. They've taken down a big 4 maybe a big 2 even in the Rabbitohs, and made them look like little babies playing in a sandpit at kindergarten.
Yeah. Ben Healy, you and I commentated this game on Sky Sport 9. It was excellent. And for me, now that we're 5 rounds in, we're now 3 and 2 on the ladder. And you think about things, we should be 5 and 0. The Sharks, we kind of let them win that in round 1. And then Melbourne had a miracle comeback to beat us. In my mind, we are 5 and 0. We are top of the table. We are above the Panthers. And this is the game that really has instilled a lot of confidence in me, even though it was still sloppy in parts, Ben. But considering the injuries and the people we had out, we managed to actually put together a bloody awesome performance, go to South Sydney and absolutely pants them on home soil.
That's right, yeah. So 3 wins, 2 losses, and of those, I mean, could argue that the Sharks deserve that win, but the Storm definitely didn't deserve their win against us. And but the three wins, and 2 of those you would say they were like Playmobil, like they kind of fit together, but it still looks kind of messy. Whereas this game was Lego. It just clicked. It just worked.
It was. And if Dad had come home with this Lego set rather than the, getting, what was it, Playmobil? Yeah.
It's like the English version of Lego that I don't know if they even make anymore.
Right, I see. So if Dad's coming home with Playmobil, I'm not happy at all. But if he's coming home with that win for the Warriors, I'm bloody stoked. The thing that stuck out for me was and it keeps happening, is every time we switch positions around, you've got RTS on the right wing, all of a sudden you bring Adam Pompey in, and they just seamlessly snap into this strategy that Andrew Webster has going. And even at halftime, the one thing you and I on the halftime show where we did some really thorough analysis, the one thing we wanted was to see RTS score because it was his 200th, and also for him to score on the right and show that it's not player dependent, that whole lethal right side attack thing we've got going on. Anyone can slot in and it can still work, and it bloody well did.
Well, look, I was going to say this until later, but I'll talk about it now. We've got more fullbacks than Brisbane seem to, and somebody, one of our star fullbacks gets injured, and somebody else just seems to drop into that role. We mentioned this in the commentary. Obviously Chance is our first choice, but then you've just got RTS who can go there if he needs to.
Yeah.
And then if he's out for whatever reason, God forbid, or he has to play in another position, then you've got CHT to come in there as well.
Yep, that's right.
Chanel Harris-Tavita. And arguably Tamari Martin could go in there as well. So there's no shortage of of number ones at the club right now.
Yeah, let's not forget as well, you wouldn't, but DWZ played fullback for a lot of his career as well. So we do seem to be running an entire back line of fullbacks, which is bloody good to see. Stonka of the round, Stonka of the game in terms of best player was definitely Wade Egan for me. He didn't get on the scoreboard, but the breaks he made led to two bloody ripper tries. Both times, in fact, he'd look one way, run the other way, dummy, and then put Chance Nickel Klukstar through a gap, and all of a sudden it was Chance running at you. You had Tamati Martin on one side, you had Sean Johnson on the other, just three hot dudes running at Latrell, and that happened twice in the game. Firstly, Tamati scored, and then Sean Johnson managed to dot down as well. So Wade Egan's impact, and I think Andrew Webster said after the game, he was hinting at the fact that Wade Egan should be considered for State of Origin, because I would argue this season so far, even though he's missed a couple of games with injury, he has just been the best-looking hooker, him and Api Kurisau for the Tigers.
Yeah, you can take our lives, but you'll never take away our Wigan. Just to paraphrase our clunky crowbar of a reference that we tried on Saturday night, you and me, Keegsy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't even know. Is he New South Wales?
Wade Egan. He producer Adam's putting his thumb up. So I'll go on a limb and say hell yeah.
So who's the incumbent there? Damien Cook. Well, you'd have to say after this week, it's definitely Wigan over Cook.
Well, definitely, because Damien Cook has slowed down massively. He used to be this like darting runner out of hooker, and ever since Wayne Bennett went there, kind of changed things. You got him. You've also got Reece Robson for the Cowboys, who's having a really good year as well, but he's not as
huge year.
He's not as dynamic out of hooker as Wade Egan is. So you could do the whole, Wade Egan starts things, or start with Reece Robson, and when they're tired, bring Wade Egan on type situation. So I hope he gets the nod, and we have another Warrior, knocking on the door of State of Origin again, because he bloody well deserves it.
So in terms of players in that game, though, I'd like a huge shout out to the two 2024 debutants. And what I mean by that is two veteran players who haven't played this year, and that's Chance Nickel Klukstar and Tamati Martin, who both had huge games, I thought.
They both had huge games. It started shaky when Chance got stepped by one of the slowest wingers in the NRL, Isaac Thompson, and I was like, oh, God. Oh, no, but he more than made up for it with his just getting involved, runs, breaking the line off of Wade Egan, his support play. And then Tamati Martin too, who, obviously Metcalf had that horrible leg injury, and we're like, oh, no, he was just starting to get good. They named Tamati Martin in there rather than CHT. We're asking questions about it. Of course, he comes in, has a try assist, a try, and looks bloody magnificent while doing it. And let's not forget Tamati Martin had to medically retire from the NRL 3 years ago and was playing down in Waikato for the local side there. So the fact that he's back looking amazing in South Sydney and, playing a massive hand in terms of smashing old Russell Crowe's team, it's bloody awesome to see.
Yeah, it is. And to talk about actual debutants, I've never seen you so excited. Well, not since you lost your virginity at the Red Fox Tavern circa 2019. With this new guy, Laban.
Jacob Laban had one of the greatest debuts I have seen for a Warrior. They purposely had him in the reserves and then switched him out onto the bench at the last second, which, it's a classic teamless shenanigans that the Warriors seem to be doing this year. But he came off the bench. The first thing he did was run freaking hard Bunty R4 styles and completely bump one of the South Sydney Rabbitohs defenders off. And I was like, oh, wow, he's running with purpose. He was playing so well that Webster just left him on. He tackled hard. He ran hard. He had one of the best debuts I've ever seen. And I am extremely excited about Jacob Laban and just yet another fantastic back rower that we can bring on when we need to. Yeah,
I thought actually the back rowers were awesome. The three loose forwards had huge games. Jackson Ford, Tohu the Tortora, and of course the new nickname that you and only you have given him, Bitch Marnett.
Don't. That was an accident, that nickname, and we're not going to stick with it. Shout out to Mitch Barnett. Love him. He's probably my favourite player.
They all had huge games because, yes, and talk about Bunty. I love Bunty, but he does no minutes, and he started, and I think he played maybe the first, 12, and maybe the last half a dozen as well.
Oh, I didn't actually check Bunty's minutes, but it is nice when you don't have to, you don't actually have to rely on guys like that because we've got just an embarrassment of riches coming off the bench. Another person I like.
You'd have to say though that like our backline does a lot of hard yards, early in the tackle count as well. Like probably more than any other team.
And that was back in the good old days when you had Fussy Tour and big Ken Maumalo. We were doing that a lot as well, and Roger. But now we've got Dallin, Marcelo, Chance, who are just getting through so much work. And we've got these awesome dynamic back rowers. We do manage to, get out on the front foot nice and early. 26 minutes for Bunty R4. So, we didn't really require him to do a lot. But one person I'd really love to shout out to, Ben, just quickly, is Latrell Mitchell, who just had potentially one of the worst games of his career. The first thing he did, right, was he passed the ball out to Isaac Thompson, which set up that try that he scored on Chance. And then when he did that, I was like, oh, God, Latrell's here to play. That was just a classic moment. And then for the next 36 minutes or whatever of that first half, he proceeded to do some of the worst things I've ever seen, just an elbow to the face of Sean Johnson, coming in to help on a tackle on Tohu Harris and spear tackling him into the ground. That's Sean Johnson, Tohu Harris. If he had run up to the box at Mount Smart and sort of hip dropped the Mad Butcher, that would have been the big three, all taken out within 40 minutes. How did you feel about his performance? And where's Latrell sitting in your brain at the moment in terms of whether or not you like him as a player? Because he flip-flops for me.
Yeah, he's a tough one, isn't he? I mean, he's clearly one of the superstars of the game, but his greatest strength is also his greatest weakness, which is he just trusts his instincts, right?
Yes.
And he's huge physically. And to be honest, it looks like he's going to get 3 weeks for the elbow to Sean Johnson's face.
Yeah.
And you look at that in the moment, I don't think there was any there's certainly intent in it, but I don't know. It just looked like it just happened in the moment. He wasn't planning it. He wasn't angry. He just was getting his elbow loose. And it was just stupid, to be honest. The Tohu thing, they reckon, I think he's got off on that one.
Yeah, I think he has,
But it's a liability. He's going to spend, it's like having Victor Radley in your side. Like, he's going to spend a third of the season on the sideline with suspensions.
That's right. And he's such a pivotal role in what they're trying to do there at the Rabbitohs. It's like when we had a guy that would do that, his name was Kane Evans, and it was like a bench forward. And we were like, oh my God, this guy keeps coming on and just being an absolute idiot, but it's not your marquee fullback, So we are kind of lucky to have, because you can't imagine Tedesco doing anything like that. Pappenhausen, Tom Turbo, they're not as physical players as Latrell Mitchell is, but he's just got these brain explosions, which, as you are correct when you say he trusts his initial instincts. But I wonder if he'll ever be able to sort of, put a lid on that stuff to a certain extent without losing what makes him such a great player. But he is out for 3 weeks. And the good thing that Sean Johnson did was he scored 2 tries, he set up a couple of tries, and he did get Latrell banned for 3 weeks. So it was sort of the first huge game of the season so far for old SJ.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's being talked about in the Aussie media now as, a superstar. That's like, really? Now you're acknowledging that? Like, the guy's probably in his, if not his last season, probably his second to last season.
Yeah.
But it is nice to get those acknowledgements, I guess, from your Triple M's and your mainstream Australian media who never really. I reckon they always look at Kiwi players as being solid contributors without being superstars.
That's right. But that's the good thing about this team that we've got is we are turning solid contributors into superstars. Like Adam Fanua-Blake was one of the best props in the game at Manly, but he wasn't the try-scoring beast that he is now. Sean Johnson, when he came to us, had a pretty dicey career at the Sharks, and now through this system, he looks freaking amazing. So the good thing is people are coming to the Warriors now and turning into stars rather than leaving, like, your Isaiah Papali'is and your Alicia Katoas, rather than leaving and then becoming stars, which is bloody good to see.
That's true. And, I know we probably should move on, but just a quick word about AFB and try scoring. I reckon he scored so many tries off that crash play that now teams are setting up for it and we're going the other way, and Rocco Berry seems to be scoring them.
Yeah, so Rocco Berry, anytime try scorer, could be a nice little one for every Warriors game going forward. And it's good to see him getting some points because for last year, his job was just to sort of plug a hole there, but now he's a huge part of the side. One final person I'd like to shout out was Blocker Roach. While we were commentating, we had Blocker Hurley, but then I watched the replay just to get some more intel, and Blocker Roach referred to Keon Koloamatangi as Koala Matangi. So,
oh my God.
So I think the koala could be a great nickname for Koloamatangi as long as we preface it by saying that was what Blocker used to call him. But before we move on, Ben, anything else you'd like to say about the game there?
No, Souths were dreadful in this game. And yes,
Terrible.
The Warriors did mostly click, but there were times in that second half, and I said to you during the call, I don't remember them having the ball. Like They just dropped so much ball. And look, this is being super picky, but I reckon we should have put probably another 2 tries on them.
Yeah, and there was a big passage of play in that first half, actually, you're right, where we kept throwing 50-50 balls and we almost were playing at their level, which was quite funny. So end of season, come mid-season, we would have put another 2 tries on them, I reckon. And I've just thought of something. How funny is it? Jack Wyden was their big signing. He left the Raiders, he got signed midway through the season. It was this big drama. He goes over to Rabbitohs. They're absolutely shitting the bed. Meanwhile, the Raiders are absolutely demolishing the Eels and playing really well. So that's quite funny.
That's right. And he did say he wanted to leave the Raiders because he wanted to win a premiership. That was literally his motivation. And he said that out loud. Oh, and one last thing, Playmobil is actually German.
Playmobil. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All sorts of things you can learn about here on Mad Monday, mostly to do with rugby league and toys from our childhood. It is time to take a short break on the Mad Monday podcast. We'll be back shortly with the Stonka of the Round, plus a couple of other talking points from round 5 in the NRL. Welcome back to the Export Beer Garden studio where myself, Adam Whanua-Kesey, and also Hurley Farnworth are deep in some NRL analysis of round 5. It is time now to talk about the Stonka of the Round! Sick! It was Thursday night's absolute stonker of a matchup between the Storm and the Broncos, with the Storm getting the win 34 points to 32. What an excellent way to start round 5 in the NRL, Ben Hurley. It was midnight. I was hooting and hollering. Meanwhile, my wife was effing and jeffing because I was being so loud. This game was bizarre because Melbourne were quite clearly in control the entire game. They dominated in the middle. They were playing classic Melbourne clinical ball. But then Brisbane just kept getting these ridiculous, thrilling, spectacular tries to keep themselves in it. I think it was probably still, even though the Warriors won and there were a couple of other really great games, I think this was still easily the most entertaining game of the round for me.
Yeah, and probably 2 of the most heavily favoured sides to take out the premiership this year, along with Penrith and the Warriors, clearly. Well, actually, we'll get onto this in a minute, but it is so hard to pick this NRL right now that you may as well put the Warriors in there.
Yeah.
A great game, and a huge game for this for Tristan Saylor, who we touched on this briefly before, but he slotted into the number 1 jersey after Reece Walsh's perfect face got rearranged in a previous game, and Tristan Saylor just looks awesome. In fact, he's certainly more solid on defense than Reece Walsh.
Yeah.
What do they do when obviously you got to play Reece Walsh? So what happens when he comes back?
I think the Broncos are just going all in on explosive attack. It's all in on when they're healthy, of course. It's absolute shambles right now, but they're all big on Carrigan, Haas, up the guts, get it out wide. Reece Walsh does some magic, and then they'll try to outscore their opposition. But Tristan Saylor's a more all-rounded fullback for sure. And I can see why. Like, the Broncos also have an embarrassment of outside backs. They've got Jesse Arthur's playing there for them now. And by the way, it's nice for him to be playing at the Broncos and me to be saying, oh, it's good to see him doing well at the Broncos, and not saying, man, I wish we still had him, because we're sweet. We've got our backline sorted. He's a great player and a great dude. I wish he was still at the Wires, but we just don't need him, which is cool. So he had a fantastic game. But they've got all these great wingers. They've got Corey Oates on the bench now, one of the all-time Broncos wingers and try scorers, because they've got Dean Mariner who's come along. They've got Jesse Arthurs who's come along. They've got Tristan Saylor waiting in the wings. So they are quite a deep team in terms of their back line, Where they struggle, we're kind of seeing, is their forwards getting injured now and their pack in the middle not really having much go forward, although the debut of the tallest man to ever play NRL, Big Ben Takuta. Did you get a load of this kid? Apparently he's 5 centimetres taller than Big Nelson Asafa-Solomona.
It's height isn't something you necessarily think is a quality trait in a rugby league player. It's not like there's lineouts.
No.
So what does height get you? Like, I feel like it makes you less agile. You wouldn't say that to Nelson Asafa-Solomona, certainly not to his face.
No.
In fact, I would just call him sir and ask him if he needs anything.
Well, that is a good point, because height, like, there are certain players who are very tall. Like, for example, Tom Turbo, his height is good because he's great at running through and catching a kick that DCE's put up. That's good. A prop, though, with the height, it does mean he could be sluggish in the middle of the park, let people through, but he also seems to be built like a brick shithouse, and he did crash over for a try on debut against Melbourne, so that was bloody awesome to see. And the other thing that's good about being ridiculously tall is that if Vossi is commentating your game, he will just yell all sorts of superlatives and nicknames at him. He's the biggest man in the world, that sort of stuff, which does make it more exciting.
Look, this was a great game, because usually when you see, the top teams at each other, they're generally low-scoring affairs.
Yes.
Because good teams are centred around quality defence, and so you might see 5 tries tops. There were 11 tries in this game. That's insane. Between basically the 2 top sides in the competition, 11 tries. I mean, I think what this means is both coaches were going berserk at their team at halftime and at the end, because that's the last thing they want to see is missed tackles.
That's right.
But you know what? It's the thing that we want to see as fans.
Oh my God, yes, please miss more tackles. It's bloody great to watch. I think Cam Munster interviewed afterwards. Of course, he made his first debut of the season because he's been out with a niggly, I think, groin. He said while he was getting interviewed, congrats on the win. How do you think Craig Bellamy will be after this? And he said, I've got my stuff on me right now. I'm just going to leave. I'm not even going to go into the changing room, because that's how effed off old Bellyache would have been. Jerome Hughes had a massive game. He cut them open several times.
It just to butt in? Is it just me, or is Jerome Hughes' headgear too small for his head?
It's because he's got puffy cheeks and puffy lips. It looks like it's suffocating his head. Yeah.
Yeah,
I do 100% agree.
It's a real issue. It all pushes his face out the front, and it looks ridiculous.
It does look ridiculous, which makes it even harder when he's absolutely tearing your team apart. Harry Grant probably had his best game of the season as well, starting to look like the Harry Grant we know. And Xavier Coates, I love Dean Mariner for the Broncos. He's their right winger now. He's a great player. He looks agile. He's fast. He's built. Xavier Coates leapt up onto his shoulders and stayed in midair for what felt like 10 seconds to get the ball and score a try, and simultaneously fractured Dean Mariner's back, which means he's now out for a month. Xavier Coates in air is one of the greatest things to ever hit the NRL, and I think over the course of his career, he's already got one amazing highlight, scoring in the final second against the Warriors this season, but he's going to have some ridiculous highlights.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I'll say about the Broncos, they stayed in this game, and they lost Adam Reynolds at halftime. We keep forgetting that.
Hammy injury.
So it looks like he's going to be out for a little while with that. And shout out to Ezra Mam. Is this his breakthrough season, or has that already happened? Because he's just I think he's the best number 6 in the game at the moment.
That's a huge call. What about Tamati Martin?
Look, hey, if he plays like last week every week, then maybe. But Ezra Mam is something else, man.
Let's not forget, a couple of years ago, he was part of the dancing crew that opened and sort of whenever the Broncos would run out onto the field, he was part of the dancing crew there. That was his role, and then he was pulled into the side through injury.
Oh, he's a cheerleader. He's saying he was a chearleader.
No, he wasn't a cheerleader. I think it was like the cultural dancing crew or something. I can't remember exactly what he was doing, but that was his role at the stadium whilst playing that lower level of footy. And then he was pulled in. He's been amazing. And to be honest, that's probably his best game I've seen him play as a Bronco. The issue with Ezra Mam is he can sometimes go missing in games, but with Adam Reynolds hobbling around, he was the one who put Jesse Arthurs in space a number of times, caught that ridiculous kick bounce and then just sprinted through, scored under the post. He was the one who kind of put the Broncos on his back in this game, so it was really good to see him do that. Anything else?
Is Selwyn Cobbo, has he got bigger? He just looks so enormous now that he's moved to centre. Or maybe it's just because he's got more players around him and there's more people for me to compare him to.
Yeah, the perspective.
But he just looks like a giant.
He is huge, right? And he seems to still be fast, though, but he kind of looks like he's jogging wherever he goes. He also always has a big grin on his face, which I love, Selwyn Cobbo. But I think that right side of Brizzy, once he gets used to being centre and once Dean Mariner comes back and Adam Reynolds too, and Reece Walsh, of course, I think that right side for them is going to be a pretty dangerous place to defend against. Speaking of, Will Warbrick had an absolutely shocking night. I know he's new to rugby league. He was a sevens player for New Zealand, but he was caught out defensively so many times. He's lucky they still won. But anything else you'd like to say on this game, Ben Hurley, before we move on?
No, look, only that I just make the point again, though. This, Brisbane, they might have been unlucky a couple of times this season, but they really do look incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
To stay in this game without Adam Reynolds is a testament to how strong they are.
That's right. Without Adam Reynolds, without Reece Walsh, without Payne Haas as well.
Yeah, right.
It's pretty bloody amazing what they're doing. Time to take one last break here on the Mad Monday podcast. When we come back, we're going to discuss the absolute bloodbath that was the Bulldogs taking on the Roosters on Friday night. Oh, welcome back to the Mad Monday podcast with bloody Infinite Keezy and old Hurley Farnworth. Last part of the podcast for you now. And just quickly, we've got a few double passes for one of the upcoming Warriors home games at Go Media Mount Smart Stadium, a.k.a. the Fruit Bowl, plus plenty of pie vouchers thanks to 4 and 20 to give away. If you would like to get yourself in the draw for a double pass and some pies, text this keyword to 3236, all right? Pie hole. That is Piehole to 3236. Don't put a space in there, otherwise you won't get yourself in the draw. Ben Hurley, a few talking points from round 5 in the NRL. The first one I want to touch on is, did you watch Friday night's opening game, the Bulldogs playing the Roosters, where the Bulldogs got the win 30 points to 26?
When I say did I watch it, I was definitely in front of the TV, but there might have been some sleeping going on as well.
Well, you weren't the only one, because Tedesco was asleep after about 5 minutes. Blake Taff was asleep. It was one of the most ridiculous injury-riddled games. It was. We had people at my place, admittedly, there were a few of us, including Manai from the Mad Monday podcast, and we'd all had a decent amount of responsible lemonades. And our partners were watching, and they could not believe how ridiculous the NRL is in terms of the brutality and the violence. Like that shot, Viliami Kikau breaking down the left wing, Teddy coming in to tackle him and then just getting knocked out cold. So he was almost doing a Lonergan style, lying on his back with his arms in the air. That sort of stuff, fortunately, is pretty rare these days, but it was one of the most brutal 15 minutes of rugby league I've ever seen.
Yeah, look, this is one of those rounds. And if you're new to the NRL, which, I think more and more people are, because what are you going to do? Watch Super Rugby?
Sorry.
This just happens sometimes, and sometimes it can go over a couple of rounds as well, where just results don't necessarily make sense.
Oh, absolutely.
This is one of them. The Bulldogs should not have beaten the Roosters. The Sea Eagles should not have beaten the Panthers, certainly not by that margin. And the Dolphins should not be unbeaten. Are they unbeaten? No, they've lost one game.
No, but they're looking amazing, yeah.
They're top of the table. And that shouldn't be the case either.
Also, the Raiders, who lost a lot of their
the Raiders
guns,
too.
They absolutely towed up the Parramatta Eels, who were in the grand final just a couple of years ago. If you were in a tipping competition right now for the NRL and you were getting them all right, that's ridiculous. Because if you're just following, even if you're just following who the favourites are, you would have got half of the games this round wrong. But
there's always one certainty, Chris.
What's that?
And that is that the Titans lose.
Oh, yes. The Titans, final game for second to last game for the round. I was watching it last night, and I was just like, I'm going to put $5 on the Titans to win just because it's so unpredictable this year. Of course, they didn't. They got beaten 35-22 by the Cowboys, but they are just terrible, right? We were talking about it in our group chat. They've got Tino, They've got David Fafita, they've got Kieran Foran, and then a wee bit of Jaden Campbell magic. But all of them just seem to either be injured or not firing or just coming back from injury. So the whole team is a shambles.
Yeah, they are very reliant on those names you just said. And to speak of that, actually, the Eels are probably terrible because Mitchell Moses isn't there.
Yeah, which is weird, though, because they put on a good performance last week without Mitchell Moses. So there are certain teams now that I have circled, and there's about 6 of them, Manly being one of them. You don't know if they're going to get absolutely creamed or they're going to put away a top team. So the Eels are one of them. I think North Queensland Cowboys will either absolutely destroy you or get completely rolled. I think Manly are in that category. I also think the St. George Dragons, they've had a couple of really good games and then a couple of shockers. I just can't freaking...
Tigers? Even the Tigers.
The Tigers
have looked better. And then they get tailed up by the Dolphins the other night.
And then the Roosters. The Roosters, everyone's talking about how great they are and they look like they're clicking. And then they get beaten by the Bulldogs, who have been shocking all season. So I just don't know what to make of it. It's brilliant. The NRL is truly going to be... It's going to be really interesting to see what the table looks like at halfway point through the season. But a big shout out to Teddy. He's such a stalwart in the fullback jersey for the Roosters, for New South Wales, for the Kangaroos as well. It made me a bit I feel a bit sick seeing him get KO'd as bad as he did. And also, spare a thought for anyone in Supercoach, definitely not Ben Hurley, who's dominating at the moment, but anyone who had Dom Young captained, he got negative 15 points. Anyone who had Teddy, I think he had about 4 points or 2 points or something like that. And a lot of people also had Sam Walker, who went off pretty much straight away as well. So ended up pretty much equaling out at 0 points if you had all 3 of those guys. So spare a thought for those people.
Yeah, well, Dom Young Joel Harrison, the pants man, he captained Dom Young. So he got negative 30 points.
I love that. And we were all in the group chat wait, so does it double your negativity? How does that work?
Oh, yeah.
Which is just so funny. So coming into this, he was higher than me on the table and he was mouthing off the pants man. By the way, if you're in our Supercoach group, he is Marcelo Montoya Jr. I am Adam Fanua-Kesey. He was mouthing off because he was beating me all season, and then he captained Dom Young. I captained Ponga, and he was in the 700 scoring-wise, and I was over 1,000, so that was good to see. Also, if you're up high enough, if you keep an eye out for Jorge Hurley in the Mad Monday group as well, who once again top scored for us, 1,138 points. So what's the secret, Ben? What's the secret to your Supercoach success, mate?
My secret is, Chris, that I use my boost every single week. And I think I'm basically out of boosts now. So my plan was, much like it was in cross-country at school, was I'd just sprint as fast as I could for as long as I could and see if I can hold on to that lead. And that's what I've done.
That is outrageous. Using all your boosts already is just an unprecedented... Well, I'll tell you what, it's effective. And if you
I'm 4 points clear of any of the other commentators in our group. So, you try and make that up, Kesey. You're second, I think.
Yeah, I think I am second as well. And I'm a mile behind. Just looking into the group to see where you are in terms of the, you are 25th.
25th, yeah.
Which is,
there's some properly good players in that, in Munter's club.
Yeah, in the Munter club. Don't forget, if you want to join, can't remember what the number is. I think I said it at the start of the podcast. But anything else you'd like to touch on, Ben, before we wrap up Mad Monday for another day?
No, I think you're about to preview it, but big game this weekend, and me and Di will be at the stadium broadcasting from Mount Smart, and we're hoping we can keep the drums out of the audio. Had a bit of an issue with that last time we were there.
That was so funny. What actually happened was Ben had left his headset right next to one of the drum lines.
It's not true. It's not true.
But the Warriors are taking on the Manly Sea Eagles. This game could be friggin' anything. Who knows what's going to happen? The Eagles just beat Penrith, but then the week before they looked absolutely terrible. Hopefully the Warriors can get up. At 5 o'clock Saturday, Sky Sport 9, Ben Hurley and Di Henwood on that. Don't forget as well, this Thursday we'll be doing a Mad Monday preview of Round 6 in the NRL as well. But for Monday, the 8th of April, thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you on Thursday.
Kia ora.